Charles will cover just the meeting norms that we're going to have for the meeting. First of all, welcome to the Learning Center. I'm the director of the Learning Center, and we're glad you all came tonight. If you haven't been at the Learning Center before, we just, this spring, maybe April, we applied for and received our 501c3. So now we'll be able to make some grant applications or apply for funding or do that. If you haven't been here before, you're welcome to look around. We have the upstairs here and we also have the downstairs. So while you're here, if you're interested, you can check out the center while we're here. Our first norm is we're going to just try to start on time and stop on time, and we know there's a lot probably to cover tonight, and we're just very grateful and glad for all of our folks who are going to give us information tonight, and we're glad you're here. There's water, and there's pink lemonade, watermelon, cookies, chips, those kind of things, so there's refreshments back there. Get it as you need it, and welcome. Charles.
Do you want to do the pledge first, or do you want to do the norms first?
I think Barb covered the norms, so let's do the pledge.
All right.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks everyone for coming. It's so great to see such a full house. You are stuck with me as your moderator. We tried to get several other people to do it, and everyone was like, no, that's going to be a hot potato. So you're stuck with me. My name is Cherie Shale, and I'm the president of the Learning Center. So this place is a place of learning. This session is for education. So if a speaker gets too political, probably going to cut them off. If one of you guys during your Q&A gets too political, going to cut those off. This session is really about education and education only. So we have several really amazing speakers up here. We're really excited to have all of them. So our first one, we're going to rearrange on your agenda just a little bit. We're going to have the Wyoming Taxpayers Association Executive Director, Hank Coversland. He's here with us, and his topic is, how do property taxes work? And so we're going to have him go first, which just makes sense, I think. So go ahead, Hank.
Awesome, thank you. So again, my name's Hank Coversland. I'm the Executive Director of the Wyoming Taxpayers Association. So we're a tax advocacy, education, and research organization here in Wyoming. So we're based out of Cheyenne, but go all throughout the state. We represent large members, small members, ag, business, individuals, everybody, and we just base our tax policy advocacy based on our cornerstones of taxation, just saying that taxation should be just, equitable, stable, and transparent. So that's just a little bit about our organization. So quickly, I just always like to start off these kind of talks with this quote from our former director of the Wyoming Department of Revenue, Brenda Henson, kind of talking about the purpose of taxation and what it's for. So it's a way that we as citizens and communities pool our resources together to provide infrastructure and services that we could not afford on our own. So it's the goal for the administrator, so the Department of Revenue, is to ensure that people pay their fair share of their tax burden, no more and no less. And it's up to the legislature or other bodies to determine what that amount should be. So that's an important starting point. I'll get in quickly here to the property tax structure in Wyoming, and then get into more Hot Springs County focused for now. So first, I always like to start, I know this is kind of hard to see, but I like to start with this from the Tax Foundation, and it just shows the different tax burdens based on what you pay as a percentage of your owner-occupied housing value throughout the United States. So in 2023, Wyoming was ranked 37th, and that was based on you paid about 0.58% of your housing value in property taxes each year. You can see that in Nebraska, it's 1.5%, so almost 3 times what we pay. Kansas is 1.3%. You get up to Montana, it's 0.75%. I think Colorado and Utah and Idaho are lower than Wyoming, so we're about average, but definitely lower than many other states. Illinois is up to 2.1% almost. Texas is at 1.6 almost. So we get a pretty good bang for our buck here, and I'll talk a little bit about that later too with a report we released at the Taxpayers Association last summer. So how do property taxes work? So the basis of property taxes is based in the Wyoming Constitution. So at this juncture, we have in the Constitution, there's 4 classes of property. There's mine products, so minerals, rocks, underground, coal, oil, natural gas, other precious metals. They're based at 100% of market value. So that's enshrined in our Constitution. Then we have industrial property, which is currently at 11.5%. And prior to last year in the Constitution, there was the all other property category. That included residential, commercial, and ag lands, and all other lands. Last year, as you may know, on the ballot, there was the initiative that the legislature passed to put forward to the people on the general election ballot, and that created a 4th class of property taxation, and that was residential. And the goal of that, I think, was to make sure that you could lower that assessment ratio, because we don't assess at the full fair market value when we apply the mills. You apply a 9.5% right now. There was a bill to try and alter that in the legislature last year. That failed, but I think it'll come up again in the Joint Revenue Committee. They asked for a bill draft. The lowest right now that it could go based on other constitutional principles is 8.25, 8.3%. That's about where it was at, based on 40 points or 4 percentage points difference with the industrial category. So that's a little bit of the basis of property taxes. So how do you get to your property tax bill? I'm sure in April you got your notice of assessment from the county assessor, and that just showed you what your value was of your property, both land and structure. So this is just a sample calculation of a property tax bill that had the fair market value at $200,000, which is right around the median in Hot Springs County. What that fair market value also takes into account, well, when you get down to the assessed value, you multiply the fair market value of $200,000 by 9.5% to get to $19,000 for your assessed value. That's where you apply those mills towards. This is a little bit dated because then this year we had a couple of other programs that would actually lower that assessed value. So we have the 4% cap, as you may know it. It's actually an exemption on anything above 4% growth. So that will take that off your fair market value. There's the 25% homeowners or the 50% long-term homeowners exemption. So that could lower that by, if it was the 25%, it would be about, this is going to be quick math, 4,500, right about there for the, so that would lower it. And then, or the 50%. And then there's also the veterans exemption that's been in place for a long time. And that's not a percentage value, that's a $6,000 of assessed value. So if you qualified for the veterans exemption, your assessed value would actually be $13,000. But that's just kind of how it's valued. So the way that assessors value is they take a look at a lot of different factors, but try and make sure that it's uniform so that people are paying their fair share of taxes, no more and no less. After you get to that assessed value, then you apply these mills. So every property in the state of Wyoming pays at least 43 mills of property taxes. And that goes to the school district 6 mill levy, 25 mills for the county school fund, and then 12 mills towards the school foundation program. So that's the state. The way that education works here in the state is that it's assessed locally, but those 12 mills actually go to the state to then be equalized across based on other constitutional principles that we have in our state constitution here. Oh, quickly, what a mill is, it's $1 on every $1,000 of assessed value. So as you can see here, the school district levy of 6 mills on this $200,000 house would be about $114 in taxes. So then you add all those mills up and multiply it. So this sample property tax bill would be at 75.75 mills, which is actually much higher than the statewide average, which is about at 69 mills. And this person would pay $1,440 in taxes. So that's just kind of how property taxes work, how you get from your notice of assessment to this bill, which will be coming in August, I believe, when budgets are set. So that's just a little bit about that. This is statewide. Who pays the property taxes statewide? So as you can see here, residential properties account for just about a third of property taxes statewide. The rest is made up of business and other ventures. So residents pay 32%, and that equates to $656 million, and this was for 2024. As you can see, minerals paid almost half, and actually if you include some of this industrial equipment, because they pay on personal property, so that would be things like furniture, fixtures, and equipment, different things like that, they probably get over half. And it fluctuates from year to year, especially because the mineral production is based on the market value of the product that was mined. And so it definitely varies year to year. But this is just a quick way to show who pays property taxes. Next, statewide, where do property taxes go? The large majority, almost 70%, go to K through 12 public education, and then the rest is split between counties, special districts, community colleges, and municipalities. You'll notice community colleges make up 4%. When we get to the information on Hot Springs, since the community college isn't located here, that there's no property taxes in this county that go to community colleges. I think what's important to say here, though, is that not one dime of property taxes goes to the state. You could make an argument that some of the K through 12 public schools, it goes to the state school fund, but then that goes directly back out. It is constitutionally mandated that it goes back out to school districts. So it's all a local tax. There was one point right before the severance tax went in the 60s where the state had 4 mills, but we haven't had that since because of the severance tax. So I think that's important to point out for everyone's edification. Moving into Hot Springs County specific, so yeah, here's who pays in Hot Springs County, the $12.88 million. So again, over half of it, the landscape looks a little different than the state, right? Each county and community is different, but over half of the property taxes paid in Hot Springs County come from mineral production. So they pay about $7 million in 2024 in property taxes. Residential made up about a quarter, and then the rest was industrial, commercial, and ag at 3%. So that's just a quick breakdown of that. And then where did it go? So much like the state, 2/3 of it went to K through 12 public education here. 17% went to the county, and then special districts got 15%, and municipalities got $250,000, or 2% of that total $12.88 million in 2024. So now I want to move into the exemptions. So starting, I guess it would have been the 2023 legislative session, the legislature started to take into account and understand that property taxes were rising, right? That's based on that fair market value, looking at sales and different things. Some people were coming in and paying cash for houses from out of state during the pandemic. So the legislature instituted some exemptions to kind of try and fend some of that off and making sure that property taxes weren't rising too high. So the first one that started was the 4% cap, or the growth from year over year can't be anything over 4%. That's based on structure and land, and these numbers are from May, so they may have changed a little bit since then, but this is from the Department of Revenue. So here in Hot Springs County, the structure, so the actual dwelling, this exempted $551,000 almost for an estimated tax reduction of $38,000, while the land was a bit smaller, savings at $7,000. The other two programs that were instituted at this time were the long-term homeowners program. So that applies to people who are 65 or older and have paid property taxes in the state of Wyoming for 25 years. So here in Hot Springs County, there was 435 approved applications at this time. Again, this could have gone up because this was back in May. But this exempted almost $5 million worth of value off of people's houses, saving them a total of $341,000. And then the homeowner's exemption that I talked about. This is the 25% exemption that if you don't get the homeowner's exemption, the long-term homeowner's exemption, everybody else got it this year. And so that's 25% of your value. That's saved $603,000 worth. So these exemptions save taxpayers here, residential taxpayers here, in Hot Springs County almost $1 million, and that is for this upcoming tax year. So those bills that will be due in November and then next May. This is just a quick showing of some of the tax reductions based on those programs that were implemented that will be unrealized or losses to taxing authorities here. So those special districts, school district, county, and cities. So as you can see, Hot Springs County total is $183,000, and then the hospital district is $45,000. You go down to the school district, it's $473,000, and so on and so forth. So those may seem like small numbers, but it does mean something to some of their budgets as well. And then there are relief programs, as I talked about, that veterans exemption, that's $6,000 worth of assessed value. So in 2024, there were 226 qualifying applicants that used it actually on residential or real property. This saved them about $49,000 worth of taxes. The important thing to note about the Veterans Exemption Program, it was doubled in starting this tax year due to a bill that Senator Cooper brought. But that is fully backfilled. So the state government uses general funds that goes to the state treasurer and then is distributed to the counties that actually have veterans that qualify in for it. So this was only based on the $3,000 exemption, so you could expect it to go up, the tax savings based on that, because it will double this year. So this is just a year lagging. And then the state property tax refund program. So this is a means tested. It's up to 145% of area median income. People can qualify to get some relief. Again, this is state general funded, and it requires the person to pay their taxes, but then they can get a refund from the Department of Revenue. So here in Hot Springs County, 205 people qualified for that were refunded $110,000. So I think it's always important to point out those relief programs that we have. As I talked about earlier, the Cowboy Family Report was something that we put out last year at the Taxpayers Association. And what we really strove to do with this was to show people the services that they receive for the taxes they pay. And so this website is part of our website, but it actually has a calculator that people can go in and put their own situation in. So what I'll show next is just the average family, which is a family of 4 that has 2 kids attending K through 12 public education, a $370,000 house, making $125,000 combined, and then have 2 cars. But so you can go in and put in your own information. What we have found, though, I've put myself in, other people that don't have kids, other things like that, you still tend, I don't know that we found a situation that you get more, you pay more taxes than the services you receive. This does not take into account federal funds or the federal taxes you pay, so this is just solely based on state and local taxes that you pay here in Wyoming. So getting into it, this is the Cowboy Family. I know it's probably hard to see, but what we found is that for every dollar of taxes paid by the Cowboy Family, this average family, they pay in taxes, they receive $13.83 back in services from the state, from the municipalities, from school districts, special districts, the county, different things. So that's a large difference, right? $12.83. So where is it made up? Mainly through mineral revenues, both on severance taxes and property taxes, investment income, and then those other commercial, industrial, and ag lands that pay those taxes as well. So getting into it a little closer, the state taxes paid in total for this Cowboy Family are $4,400, a little over that. That's mainly comprised of property taxes. So 54% of that is property taxes. Sales and use taxes are 28%, and then the rest is fuel taxes and excise taxes. What do they get back? That's $61,000, so that's the $1 to $13.83. Again, 50% of this is K through 12 education, based on statewide average, what we pay per pupil. And then the state makes up 18%, city municipalities make up 9.4%, special districts are 14.5%, and then county services are 7.3%. So I just think that's important to illustrate, and then I would again just let you know about the website. So I will end there and turn it back over to you.
Perfect, thank you. You did a good job illustrating that, and we might leave your slides up, and that way if somebody has questions
Yeah,
later,
I
we
can
can
go
kind
back.
of flip
Yep.
back and forth. So I think you did a pretty good job with how property taxes work, and now we're gonna talk about what happened this year that's affecting our budget so drastically. So would Senator Ed Cooper is with us tonight, and so is our Representative John Winter. If they want to just talk, you can go together, you can go separately, about Senate File 69 and what it is and how it works and how it affected the county.
I guess I can start out.
We need him to stand up. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you guys can talk a little bit, us in the back, me, I'm having a hard time hearing you, so if you could talk up a little bit, I would appreciate it.
All right.
Okay.
But
Sen-
stand up so we can hear you better, please, also.
Senate File 69 was put together by the Revenue Committee in the Senate, by the committee, and and the final product was drawn from 4 or 5 potential bills. They worked it pretty hard for a long time through the interim, and this is what they came back to the Senate with. This was the preferred option by the Revenue Committee. And basically what it amounted to was a 50% reduction in property taxes with no backfill, which, if you remember correctly, is exactly what the People's Initiative that's be on the ballot this year is. There were several of us that fought hard for some kind of backfill, especially to the special districts and for the 5 hardship counties in Wyoming, which is Hot Springs, Washakie, Bighorn, Weston, and Niobrara. I believe it's the 5. 3 of those counties are in my district, or my district anyway. John has 2 of them, and it hit us really hard in this area. We fought hard for backfill, and the Revenue Committee stood by where they were. They absolutely refused to waiver at all. After it passed the Senate, it goes over to the House. The House's bill was a little different. I think it was 25% with some backfill. I don't remember exactly what it was. We didn't do it yet. But when it's all said and done, you end up with a concurrence committee, a joint committee that's neither John nor I get to sit on. In this case, I'm pretty sure John wasn't on it. And that little group of 6 people comes up with the final bill. And that's what the final bill was, Senate File 59. And the 2 sides agreed that's what it was going to be, and that's how it got passed out. So,
And what was on?
pardon?
What was the final bill?
The final
What is this?
bill was 25% reduction in your property tax, like Hank just showed us here, with no backfill. The backfill would have went to, especially to the special districts. And then we also worked on one for emergency services, like the hospitals, the fire district, ambulance, anything that you might have had in your county that was hurt really severely, so we could at least maintain our hospital district and our fire districts and those things. And we just flat did not get that passed. So, John, you have something to add to that?
Yeah, I could maybe fill in a blank or 2. I have a kind of a summary here of that Senate File 69. And it would be better for me to just read it than try to explain what went on.
They all have it in their packet too. So Senate File 69 is the one that has all the red on it. The first bill.
Can I ask a question?
We're gonna do questions at the end.
But
guys,
you're
'cause I
using
saw
a
couple
term
hands.
that people may not use. You're talking about backfill. You mentioned it, you're probably gonna mention it. And for someone that doesn't know what you mean by backfill, can you explain that so that they can comprehend what you're saying?
That's where the state would come in and use general fund money to reimburse the counties for these losses.
Right. Go ahead, John.
Okay. As I said, this is a summary of Senate File 69, and it maybe will help you understand a little bit about what we wouldn't get to, I guess, if we were just talking off the cuff. But Senate File 69 establishes a property tax exemption for a portion of single-family residential
Hey,
structure.
John, can you talk louder? Don't you have any microphones?
We don't, I'm sorry.
I'll try to do
Mary Ann
that.
went to get a PA system, so if you can just kind of bear with, we'll have one here in a minute.
Perfect,
Hopefully
thank
we
you.
can get more people to hear it better.
Well, what I didn't do is thank Kim and Sheree for their efforts to get us all here and set this up. It's really a good educational opportunity. So anyway, I'll just try to be a little louder until I get that in here. It establishes a property tax exemption for a portion of a single-family residential structure and the associated improved land as a homeowner tax exemption. The bill establishes the amount of the exemption as 25% of the fair market value of the single-family residential structure and the associated improved land, provided that the exemption only applies to the first $1 million of the fair market value of the property. The bill specifies that the exemption is not available to a person who has applied for and received a long-term homeowner property tax exemption for the same property in the same year. And I think that was discussed here in this last presentation. Now, the bill establishes a definition of single-family residential structure and specifies that beginning with tax year 2026, the definition means a single-family residential structure where the person claiming the exemption actually resides for not less than 8 months of the year, unless service in the armed forces is the reason for the person claiming the exemption cannot meet the 8-month requirement. And this bill makes the property tax exemption applicable to the tax year beginning January 1st of 2025. So I hope that may be a little more detailed than what we've talked about so far. I counted them up today, and if I counted correctly, there was 11 bills brought forward for property tax relief. And basically that's what the main objective was for this last session down there, was to get some kind of relief for the people of the state of Wyoming. And I'm not sure we got it done. As Ed indicated, the House Bill 169 had a 25% discount with a 25% backfill that we were talking about. And of course that didn't make it through the process. So now we're faced with this in Hot Springs County, it's like a swamp water basically. So, but we're going to be working on it, and I think the county commissioners have got things pretty well figured out how they're going to make it work for this year anyway. But we've got a lot of work to do, and we want to do something that's going to be lasting and make the state of Wyoming whole. So hopefully this helps you kind of understand what we've gone through and what we're trying to do. So that's all I have.
Perfect, thank you very much.
A couple things we can add to that, sure, even John. We saw 600.
Do you want to pull the pie chart?
Yeah, $600,000 of cut to the schools. Because of the ongoing Campbell County lawsuits, the state's going to have to make that whole. And that's part of why our school foundation fund is going to be short this year, because of these massive cuts to the school foundation. This is $600,000 in this county. You think about what that amounted to in Campbell or Converse or Natrona, you know, those cuts were massive to the schools, and I think it's in the $6-7 million range. Am I right, John? Is that the number you're hearing? To the schools that the state has got to make up. And the school's going to come out whole. The ones that lose are, especially in our district, in our area, are the special districts. The counties, thank you.
We'll try to get it up.
The counties are,
Oh, sorry.
scared me to death.
At least you're awake.
The counties are struggling, the municipalities are struggling, but they'll get through it. But the special districts, the hospital district, and the fire district, those are the things I'm worried about. And how do we make sure that, you know, that money we were putting away for a new fire truck is now going to operations. And maybe we don't have a new ambulance coming in 5 years like we were hoping. So those are the kind of things that I'm really worried about.
Perfect, thank you guys. So I think we're going to go to our county assessor, Dan Weber, next. And Dan's going to talk about there's other factors that are affecting our cuts as well. And I think if you could go to the chart that you had that showed where the counties, yeah, that one will be fine. I was thinking more of like the other revenue that we get. But Dan can talk to that.
Yeah, there was a chart on there that showed, I think that mineral revenue accounted for somewhere close to 55% of the total county revenue. I think it's important to point out this year in our budget process, our mineral revenue dropped last year from, well, not revenue, sorry, valuation in 2024 was 108 million. And this year, it dropped to around 83 million. So that's a pretty good sized drop. That's equates to about $300,000 in property taxes, just for the county, for the county's 12 mills. The other factors that we haven't mentioned yet are some of the other exemptions. Next year, starting for tax year 2026, personal property on business equipment, the first $75,000 will be exempted from everybody's valuation. So in this county, that's probably not going to add up to a whole lot, but it's not adding to the value. It's definitely taking a little bit more away. Let's see, one other important thing to point out on that homeowner's exemption, in 2026, that is going to change to owner occupied, and this year in 2025, it went to all single-family residential homes. So if you owned a rental, VRBO, Airbnb, any of that kind of stuff, or just a house that was sitting vacant, you still receive that exemption, and you will not receive that next year. And I think that's going to catch a lot of people off guard because they're going to see 25% put on there on that tax bill. But that might help the valuation a little bit, bringing some of that value back. So that's all I have, Sheree. Did you want me to take questions, or do you want to finish?
We're going to finish.
Sheree, I got one.
We'll do questions at the end.
I'd like Dan to add to that. Dan, would you talk about the fact that the 50% long-term homeowners has to be applied for?
Yeah, so I think what he's referring to is every year that long-term homeowner, you have to come in and apply for that. So we'll be making sure that everybody knows about that with the tax bill that they're going to receive in the mail here soon and the newspaper. So the long-term homeowner and the homeowner's exemption will not be automatically applied in 2026. You will have to sign up for that. So if you own your house and you live in your house, you will need to sign up for one of those exemptions.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go to this end of the table now and talk about how this is playing out. So talking about just a little bit of the budget cuts that we're seeing and and how that is going to be implemented.
I don't know, do you
Okay.
guys hear me without the microphone?
No.
Nobody's ever accused me of being too quiet, so that's why I'm asking. Okay.
Well, you know, I'm really not really sure what to cover on this because the budget process is an extremely difficult and long process. Julie, do you want to maybe stand up too while we're doing this? So first, I guess the first thing I was going to ask is, I don't know, did this get in the handout?
It did not.
Okay, so there is I have a handout, and I can get it to anyone who's interested on actually how to go and see the budget on the county website. That we've made some remarkable improvements on that. So a few things on our budget, and I'm really not going to go through the budget because we would be here all night long if we went line for line.
It's in the packets.
It's in the packets. One of the things I want to point out is if you're looking at our county budget and you're looking at current year versus prior year, you're going to look and go, wow, you know, the county is spending this much more money, but yet they're cutting all of their budgets. So of the total expenditures of $22,131,574, that includes $10 million of grant expenditures that we have. So when you look at that, we take the grant expenditures, and that's actually the exact same amount is added back into our projected revenue. So when you look at some of the stuff on the budget, it's really kind of hard to understand the process because there's things that happen. We have expenditures, but we also add that back into revenue. So some of this stuff is kind of hard to look at and really, unless you know the process, understand. So one of the things I'd like to say to everyone here and anyone else is if you have questions, if you have detailed questions, please come and talk to me, talk to any of us on our parts of the process of the budget. I always have an open door. I may not always be available, but I will always make time for anyone who wants to come in and talk to me. The process is, it's very time consuming. Cherie was really nice enough to do a summary of some of the changes. Yes, it's that page. And that's based on the published budget, right, Cherie? You did that?
Yes.
So, so Assessor Weber has, did you put in your packet to hand out the, what was just passed by the commissioners today, the 25?
No,
Is that
but
in there?
it's on the website under the assessors page on the right-hand side. There's a link that says general information for 2025. I just posted it today, and it has all of that information.
So some of the things to understand is the county general gets a 12 mil. So for instance, $174,000 or 1.012 mils actually goes to the library for the 25-26 fiscal year. We had a portion of that goes to the fair board, 0.524 mils. And unfortunately, both of those have statutory requirements attached to them, so that is why they were funded. Unfortunately for our museum, they got cut 100%. There's no statutory requirement for our museum. There's no statutory requirement for a lot of the things we had to do. So outside of, in our process, outside of the payroll, we took out any raises, and we discontinued like HSA contributions for our employees. All of our plans, our health insurance plans, we raised deductibles on both of our plans, so the employees are paying more deductibles. So those are some of the things we immediately started doing. Then we started asking, outside of those changes, we asked every department to cut at least 1%, if not more, out of their budgets. Everyone actually did accomplish that, if not more than 1%. But I do want to talk about a couple of things you'll see on the budget. The county attorney's budget actually increased by 2%. But this was due to a methodology change in budgeting for state reimbursed wages for the county attorney and deputy attorney. So one of the things that happens is we get up to $50,000 or 50% of the county attorney's wages reimbursed by the state. Likewise, we get up to $30,000 or $30,000 or 50% of the deputy county attorney's wages. So in the past, that entire wage was put into the county attorney budget. The last couple of years since I've been here, we looked at that and went, you know, that's really not an entire county obligation. So we've changed how that showed. Unfortunately, the methodology for determining the budget last year was we calculated the taxes and the benefits based on the net, not the gross pay. So we did a budget amendment for 24-25 to correct that, and then this year, we corrected that in the attorney's budget. So even though you're seeing a 2% increase, the attorney's office actually had, from what they requested, they actually did also have a decrease in their budget. So those are the kind of things that if you just are looking at a piece of paper and you don't know the background, you don't understand what's actually happened in the budget. Another thing that you'll see is the county treasurer's budget looked like it was decreased a lot, and actually it was. But that was due to the fact that Treasurer Mortimer had a line item of about $27,000, I think it was, and that was for a part-time position. She was hoping eventually she would be able to fill and have some additional help in there. It hadn't been used since about 2021, so she removed that from her budget for this year. So once again, she actually achieved a significant change in her operation budget, but some of that was more personnel related. Another change that I'm just going to talk about, for instance, is the elections budget was cut by $30,000. So this is an off year. That was a place that I felt we could cut. But one of the things that's really difficult when you're working with budgets, especially government budget, is you take something away, it's really hard to give it back in the next year because you're thinking you're going to hopefully stay where you are. So we still have some real challenges that are going to come up when we have to start funding things that maybe we didn't have to this year, but we will in the next years. I think that Cherie's analysis laid out a lot of good things. On page 7 of that county budget, it talks about benefits, which is mostly our medical and dental insurance that is paid by the county. That increased by $97,950. So that's the premiums that the county is paying to do the benefits for our employees. The actual health insurance was $134,850 increase, and the dental premiums was $5,000. But that was offset by the fact that we decreased the HSA contributions by $55,000. Hot Springs County has what is called a self-insured health insurance plan. So we are the insurance company, and the benefit of that is being able to try and keep claims down or keep the costs down, but it also depends on the claims that you have throughout the year. So if you have high claims, your premiums are going to go up. The actuarials is going to say, hey, you know, you've got to increase the reserves you put to cover all of that, those unknowns. So that's part of that increase that you'll see there. Things that we really don't have control of. We hope we can keep our claims down, but it doesn't always happen. We cut approximately $500,000 out of our miscellaneous accounts. We had capital expenditures we reduced by $50,000. So if we have a major capital project that has to be paid for, we have $50,000 less than that. 911 equipment upgrade, that was 100%, but that had been well, you can't call it a loan because governments are not allowed to take out loans, but it's basically a loan, but it's called a lease. We actually paid off that for equipment upgrade that happened 20 years ago, maybe, something like that. I don't remember how long ago that was. Was it that long?
No, it was
Because I know when I was auditing.
New console equipment in the dispatch was 2019, 2018.
I couldn't remember. I knew when we were auditing it in there. Our GIS expenses, we cut that back by 58%. Search and rescue, unfortunately, we cut that back by 53%. But we'll still be trying to keep the building and everything going. But once again, they'll be, unfortunately, trying to do some things on their own. there's so many things that we did cut. So one of the things you'll see, it's called the LATCF funding. The LATCF funding was money that we received from the federal government. It was about $1.8 million. Is that correct, Julie, as an estimate? And that was money that was received for ARPA funding. And so our commissioners over the years since we have received that have only been using those funds for special projects. We repaired the county roofs. We bought road and bridge and sheriff equipment. Anything that was a major, something that did not have to have a sustainable background. So we didn't put it towards wages. We didn't put it towards something that would have to be a recurring. They used it wisely. But as we're spending that down, you'll see that our cash goes down, our available cash goes down, and then our expenditures go down on that too. So that's, once again, it's another one of those kind of funky things that you have to understand if you're looking at the budget. I talked briefly about the health insurance plan, so I probably won't go into any more about that. We didn't have a lot of change in our airport fuel expenditures. That's the same budget as that prior year. That fund was set up strictly for the fueling process out at the airport, so that process has to pay for itself. So whatever we use to fuel up any of the incoming things, any repairs on the fuel tanks and all that, that all pays for itself. We didn't change anything with that. The vaccine fund we set up a couple of years ago. So we were hoping that the vaccines through public health that we do are self-paying. It's a self-paying program. The general fund originally loaned like $41,000 to start that. It was seed money. This year we're taking that $41,000 back to help us balance the budget. So that's just a few of the things that might be of interest. And I think at that point in time, Julie, do you have anything that?
I developed laryngitis over the weekend, and so I think it must be allergies or something, but I really don't have much to add to that other than, I provide to Becky the cash on hand, which means I go by balanced bank statements, which are audited, and all money is audited, and so, all money that comes in, I'm accountable for, and report to her. And then that's what she has to base between what Dan is saying is coming, what I say is there, and what I project that's coming, which is done through the Wyoming County Commissioners Association's handbook. That's what brings it all together. And during the budget time, her and I have actually developed quite a relationship of having to work together quite closely. But I did look at the figures, and I found it was really interesting today because I really didn't know what to say. I printed out my revenue reports for 23, 24, and 25. And the difference between the 23 total revenue report and the 20 and this year's is $2 million difference. Again, that's going back to the LATCF and the ARPA funds, which were those two were the COVID monies. Those were not in this year's, but they were in prior years. So you're looking at $2 million right there in not receiving of cash. Everything else stayed really consistent. One thing that we did take a hit on this fiscal year was direct deposit, or direct distribution, thank you. As I spoke of before, when we had a class in here, we get revenue from sales tax, direct distribution is, and property tax, sales tax, and direct distribution. Our direct distribution went from $1 million last year to 655. In 2023, it was $1.1 million. That direct distribution is a good thing to keep going. It really does help the county. I just have to put that plug in, but we did take a hit there too. But basically,
so
she summed it up.
Well, and I think the build, build is going to decrease. We're anticipating at least 300,000 if we even get it.
Yes. Yeah, that's another big variable. But when you go through, and you're always welcome.
That's payment in lieu of taxes. So because we have so much federal ground, and any of you guys can supplement me on this. So we have so much federal land here that we can't collect property tax on that land. So there's a federal government will pay us in lieu of taxes. That's not a guaranteed payment every year. Every year in spring, we're holding our breath and hoping that will come in. So we had 1-point-something million that we got paid this year. Next year, they're saying maybe 700,000. So PILT is another thing that it has big variables and it can drastically. So we try never to use that PILT money to plan for that money to come in because it can be taken away from us every year. And I can't think of anything. Once again, with our health insurance plan, you know, we see some of that money going out, but at the same time, that's income in on another side because the general fund pays the self-insurance fund for the premiums. So there's just a lot of that kind of thing, and it's government accounting. It's very common accounting, but it can be very confusing accounting as well. So once again, for me, I welcome anyone to come down and sit. And we've got stacks of paper that we can show how we accomplished what we did. And so once we all pull everything together, then that gets presented to our commissioners, and then that's where the hard work really starts too, making some tough decisions.
And I'm going to start this around. We don't have printed copies of the Wyoming Taxpayer Association presentation, but we do have it via email. If you would like a copy of this presentation, if you could put your email on this list as it goes around, we'll make sure that you get a copy of that.
So I'm sorry, I thought it was really kind of interesting. I tried to send out a survey to all of our other counties in the state, all 23 counties, and it's a busy time for all of us, so I only had 13 counties responded, but of those 13 responded, 5 of the counties actually used their reserves, drew down out of their reserves to balance their budget this year. You know, that's kind of that backfill type thing. You're using your savings to pay your bills, and that's kind of a dangerous place to be. And of those 13 responded, 6 actually started with a deficit. And when you say deficit, that makes it sound like you're already in the hole going in. But that means that when you're starting your process, you've turned in this many more dollars of expenditures than you have anticipated revenue. So of those 13, 6 of them actually started and had to cut, if not $1 million or more, to be able to do that. So Hot Springs County isn't the only one, and one of the counties actually, they have a lot of money, but they actually had to take $25 million out of there to balance their budget this year, and that's huge. It won't last very long.
So I think we're going to just go to Q&A now, because I know you guys have a lot of burning questions, and that'll kind of help us direct the conversation to what you guys are interested in learning more about. So I'm going to turn it over to my dear friend John Anderson now to run our Q&A.
Before we get started, I want to say a few things. This is supposed to be for learning, educational. So we're going to start out with questions about what they explained to you, like backfill, like PILT money, things of those sort. So that's what I want you to do first. If you have questions about the facts, we want to answer those first. Then we'll move on to sort of taking care of the thing about what their role was or what they think about it, okay? We really don't want to have this be a moment for a political statement. You can do that individually. I'm sure that the reps, the elected officials, would be glad to hear from you. But you know, those things tend to get out of control. And as an educator, I think they're valuable, but I don't think this is the place for it. So the other thing I'd like to say is try to not make anything personal. It's about the ideas. It's about the process. You know, and be respectful in the way that you say that. So let's open it up. Who has a question about the facts?
Do we know the loss of mineral production in the last 5 years? Not the value of the mineral, but the mineral production itself.
Good question.
Yeah. So again, I have a really nice chart on the website under that county data. I have both a chart and a spreadsheet that shows the number of barrels produced in the county, the number of barrels sold, and the average price per barrel, total valuation, and the percent change in all of that, going back, well, all the way really to 1977, but in 2006, that's when we started tracking barrels sold. So some of that data doesn't go all the way back, but yes, I think that's a really good point. Did you ask that, Jared?
Braden.
I know this is really small and it's going to be hard to see from back there, so I encourage everybody to go look at it. But starting in 1977, we produced roughly 10 million barrels of oil, and last year we produced 1.6 million. So drastic decline. The last 5 years specifically have been almost constant. It was 1.6, 1.7, 1.8, 1.7, 1.6. So the last 5 years there hasn't been a lot of change. But once you hit 6 years going back, it's gone down every single year for the most part.
John, can I speak to that for just a minute? Sure. Thank you. So one thing to keep in mind here is a year ago the price of oil was $80. Today it's $65. The way the price of oil works for the producer, of that, let's use a number of $66.50. That's kind of the average for the last month. There's a deduct on every barrel for transportation and for the type of oil it is. And in one field that I'm watching, that deduct is $6.65. That makes this pretty easy math. So that, after the deduct, that producer gets $60 a barrel of that $66.50. Then the next thing that happens is the state and the Fed step in, and in Wyoming, that's about 13.5% that they take. And then there's royalties that come off of that. When it's all said and done, that operator's getting about 65%, 66% of that original price. So that $66 is down to $40. On these marginal fields, some of these wells are making 4 or 5 barrels a day or less. So a lot of these old wells are making maybe $100 a day. So they're really not economic. People are trying to keep them running, but it's just not working. And you think about the cuts to the county and the state with that kind of deduction.
Senator Cooper, can you also explain the difference between like West Texas Intermediate and the more sour oil that we're producing here? So if you see $60 a barrel, that doesn't mean that that's what a lot of our producers are even getting.
Right, $66.50 is West Texas Intermediate. That's also basically the NYMEX price. And so every type of oil has a deduct off that. Besides the transportation, which might be, if they're lucky, it's a pipeline, it's a little bit less. But if they're trucking that oil, it gets pretty high. And then when you get into sour crudes like we have in this basin, then you're looking at probably another $10 to $15 off of that. So that $40 that producer was going to net down in southeast Wyoming or over in Commerce County is probably closer to 25 here. It's pretty minimal what we get in a barrel. Now, we have some things going on in the state that have potential, huge potential for the Bighorn Basin, and that's the enhanced oil recovery. And I'm doing all we can on the Minerals Committee to try to promote this a little bit, but enhanced oil recovery takes CO2, carbon dioxide that's been captured. Most of that's coming from the Chute Creek plant over in, I guess that's Lincoln. Yeah, Lincoln. And it goes through a big pipeline down through the southern part of the state, up through the other side of the mountain, and out into Montana and North Dakota. If we could bring that CO2 into this basin, just basically every old oil field in this basin is a good candidate for CO2 injection. In the Patrick Draw, I don't remember the name of the field specifically, but Anadarko took a little spur down there about 15 years ago and began injecting CO2 in that field. They were at 10 barrels a day for the whole field. They were plugging the field out. Anadarko saw potential there. They bought the field. They made a huge investment to try the enhanced oil recovery. That field today is making over 7,000 barrels a day. So those kind of things can happen right here in this basin if we can keep the mindset open to think about the future rather than just today.
Thank you. Is there another question?
I have another question for Ed. Ed, neither yourself or John talked about why on this 25% cut, And from reading in the papers, my understanding that some of the largest counties in the state had over-collected property taxes, and they had very significant reserve. I think I heard a figure of 93 million in Laramie County, 260 million there. And so the property owners in those counties had a very legitimate concern about having their property taxes lowered. And is it true that that was the driving force behind the 25% reduction? Because I consider unfair that the small counties got cut because the bigger counties were over collecting.
That's a good question too. I wanted that to be a little bit further down the line, but let's go ahead and answer it.
The biggest thing I saw was the influence of the People's Initiative coming. But you're very right on part of that. Counties like Converse and Campbell, they're rich beyond our dreams over here. But unfortunately, in the entire Bighorn Basin, we have 3 senators and 6 representatives for roughly 20% of the state, area-wise. Where counties like Laramie County, they must have probably 12 representatives total for just Cheyenne. So even with all of us here, when we band together and work hard together, we just don't have much power compared to the rest of the state, to counties like Campbell or Laramie, where the population is. They've got the representation, we don't. So we're pretty well outgunned when we get down there.
Would you agree, John?
Yeah.
Would you want to add, John? Thank you. What Ed has been talking about is the way I look at it as well. That there's, we've been talking about some things on the Ag Committee about eminent domain and things like that that have something to do with this CO2 pipelines and so forth. So what Senator Cooper's been talking about as far as the getting these wells to come back, we need the CO2, and in order to do that, we've got to have pipelines. And you're dealing with eminent domain at that point. And I think we can get something done with that for these private landowners, but it's going to be harder to do because of that eminent domain proposal. So hopefully, the other thing was, it was my understanding that this whole property tax situation showed up because of what the county of Teton is doing over there. People moving in and the taxes are going up, and so it's affected the whole state. So hopefully we can address that this next year and get something kind of permanent to help the counties in the state. But as far as the oil and gas goes, I'm with Senator Cooper. We need to do something with this CO2 to improve our production. But at the same time, our governor has talked about taking that CO2 from the air and putting it into the ground. And my own personal thought about that is that it's a kind of a failed policy, but nevertheless, it's something we have to deal with. And I think we can get something done about this CO2 injection in these wells. We need to do it because it's really going to affect the state of Wyoming.
Just a little bit more to add to that.
I don't want to go down this road too much further because there may be other questions about the facts, but go ahead.
Just to add to what John said, we do have a pipeline corridor up through the Bighorn Basin. It runs right, I think it's over Bridger Pass and up through the center part of the state. And the way we get CO2 to these fields is just piggyback existing pipelines as much as we can. So we're not talking about, you know, whole new right of ways in a lot of places. We're talking about piggybacking and trying to make the most of what infrastructure we have. There's even some lines we can turn around. So there's some good things we can do, and the potential for it in this basin is huge, really huge.
Thank you. Do we have any questions about terminology or process or something that you didn't quite understand?
There's an entry in here called responsible gambling.
An entry for responsible gambling?
So I'm not real familiar with the program, but apparently there was some funding, and I can't remember if it's a state, is that state or federal? State. So they went to every county and said, we have this money. Most of this type of thing comes from like settlement type things, or it may even come from.
I think it was actually part of the deal with the gambling.
Okay.
We okayed for gambling, yes, we set up that program.
So they came to the county and said, we have this much money that you can have based on your size. Do you want it? And it'll probably be used for a prevention type program. So it's not it's not normal general fund. It's more like a grant. It's more like a grant. It's not a grant. And it's the same thing with the opioid abatement. That came from those come from federal settlements. They give us the money, and then we use that money for prevention on opioid abatement type of things.
Is it something with the property?
The lottery. I'll let Julie. The revenue is more her thing.
You know, we got that. It was a couple of years ago that we got the gambling prevention money.
Or that or last year. I don't remember which.
Yeah, and basically my understanding is it was part of the deal that when we started to allow gambling, that there would be money there for addiction.
Yeah. Good question.
Phil, you've had your hand up a long time. I wasn't ignoring you.
Just so that I'm clear and that everyone's clear, you guys were talking about PILT is going to be $600,000 less, $300,000 less. You know, $1 million came from the LITCF money. What is the total budget that the county spends? That says 12.8 altogether.
What says
Well,
History.
what was the total expenditures of the county? To put this in perspective, if we're talking a couple $100,000 less here, $50,000 less there, what was the total amount budgeted for the county?
Total amount, including that 10 million in grants, was 25,700,574. The total amount was 25,700,574.
And about 10 million of that was grants?
10 million of that is grants.
So $15 million is the pot of money that the county gets to pass around, and we're having hundreds of thousands of dollars short here, hundreds of thousands of county valuation changing. That just puts it in perspective, because you know my checkbook doesn't have near as many zeros.
Mine either. I actually had a comparison I didn't talk about. So our comparison of our 25-26 versus 24-25, on our beginning available cash was down by $929,000. Once again, that was representative of some of that LATCF and other funds that have come in that have kind of been sitting in, you know, I don't want to say I'm going to dummy it down, but basically it was sitting out here in our available cash, and now as we've spent those projects and done those projects, we spent that down. The projected revenue is down by $10 million. And PILT alone, if allocated, once again, is anticipated to be down by 300,000. And the assessed value that we used for the budget, and Dan can talk about that more, that was down by $167 million, and that's the assessed value, not the dollar value. Did I say that correctly,
Correct.
Dan?
That is
So yeah, there's, if you start looking at some of that type of stuff, you can see. And then, of course, I don't know how many of you, but our utility bill isn't going down. A lot of our other bills aren't going down. Our fuel bills aren't going down that we have to put in, for our sheriffs to go drive someplace. Our copy paper is not going down, and we're required to let people into our vault every day. And to make copies, we can charge for it. But one of the things a lot of people don't understand is, like in the clerk's office, the clerk's fees are set by the legislatures. We don't get to make those changes. The clerks haven't had an increase in fees since 2013. So, there's some things like that happen that, we are trying to keep up, and we're trying to do more technology, but all of us are faced with those type of changes and increases that we all see on our personal day-to-day basis. So that's a lot of what we're experiencing.
Good, thank you.
Gail's
You've
had her
also
hand
had
up.
your hand up a while.
Sorry,
Yeah, I wasn't going to ask, but I'm going to ask. We spoke earlier, and I think that I'm still not really clear about revenue versus valuation, and I'm hoping you can refresh from 4 hours ago when we talked about the way oil taxes work. And I don't want to go down an oil rabbit hole at all, but I think that it's important because it's semi-recently changed the way that oil, as far as I understand it, the way Hot Springs County can make assumptions or valuations about where the tax money is coming from when it comes to oil, because it's not taxed the way that it used to be. And could you explain that again, please?
Sure. So prior to 2022, anybody that produced minerals was paying their property tax on that production about 1.5 years, 2 years behind. So when the county went to budget, we knew exactly how much money we were going to collect. In 2022, starting on January 1st, the state started collecting property taxes on mineral production in real time. So it's really hard to budget when you're trying to set a budget for October, November, December in June, and you don't know what oil is going to be worth in those months, right? So when you're collecting it in real time, you try to project what it's going to be. So there's a lot of different ways to do that, but that's where part of the shortfall comes up this year, is because really the big drop in oil price happened on April 8th this year. And so at that point, the bottom kind of fell out of it, and the valuation of oil dropped. So we had to try to project for that, and that's where earlier I was talking about that drop from $108 million last year all the way down to $83 million in property taxes collected from mineral production for this year. So when that change happened to collecting that money in real time, that really affected the way that the county budgets.
Gail's got her hand up. Do I care, John?
I was just curious as to why the airport hangar, WYDOT, got a lot more money than they asked for.
Why they got more money than they asked for? Or are you talking the proposed to the final budget? Is that as one of the
Page
grants?
12.
Page 12, thank you. So that is one of the grants, and in the process of us working through the expenditures, we've been actually having continual meetings on trying to get that. I'm sorry, who answered the question?
Gail.
Okay, now I can see it. So we've been working on that with the commissioners have been working on that, and in the process between when we had to do the proposed budget and when we did the final, there's been some more available funding that came available, and we're going to hopefully be able to move forward some more. So our grant funds are going to be higher than what we thought they were going to be. So we increased that budget by that amount.
So that was grant?
That's grant money, yes,
Okay.
that is correct.
You know, I need to say, I really appreciate these questions, because I think it really fills in a lot of material for you. But it also shows you how complex this is. There are no simple answers here. You have another question?
My question is about the ARPA, and could you explain exactly what that is to everybody in here? I just looked it up, so I know a little bit. And is the money from that static? I mean, is it gone?
What page are you on?
I'm on no page.
Okay,
ARPA, I believe, was the American Recovery.
Rescue plan.
Yes, thank you, rescue plan. So that was developed by the federal government as a result of COVID-19, trying to get money back out into the economy for local, state governments. That's when we're talking the LATCF grant, or those funds, that was part of the ARPA funds that came down. So the first tranche we got was actually called SLFRF, which was the state, local, and something funds. And then the last one was the local and tribal fund. So anyway, it's all federal government that has come back in to inject money back in. And that was the money I was talking about earlier, where the commissioners have repaired roofs and bought large equipment and those type of things, so that, but not sustainable kind of expenses. So that is what that is. Does that answer your question?
I'm just asking about it in the future.
It's gone.
That's what
It is gone, yes. So we're spending down the rest of that. We have to either obligate or actually expend it every year as I'm reporting it. And I believe that with the last that we have, our last meeting, I think we've expended all but, or obligated, either expended or obligated all but about 60,000 of that total money that came, so.
Good question, thank you.
Let's open up a little bit. Again, I don't want to make it about political statements, but if you'd like to know more about their thoughts on what should be happening in the future or anything of that sort, please ask now. I'll just work my way back.
So the People's Initiative, there's a little paper in here. Why don't you, especially Senator Cooper and Representative Winters, why don't you tell us what that could look like and how that would affect us again?
Phil, could you repeat what you said?
What is the People's Initiative, and how will that affect us going forward? The 50% cut in property tax.
Additional.
The proposed.
Okay, so the People's Initiative will be on the ballot in 2026. And that's a 50% cut in property tax. That's not 50% from where we are now, that's 50% off the 9.5%. So what we saw this year was basically 1/2 of the People's Initiative. 25% cut in property tax. And we see what it's doing to our counties. The big counties, they kind of think it's no big deal, they just blow it off. But for us, it's devastating, in my opinion. Where to go with? I have said publicly, and I stand by it, if the people in my district vote for the People's Initiative, then I'm required ethically to support that. Personally, I don't support it because I'm seeing what it's doing to our counties. But if the countywide, district-wide, the majority of the voters in my district support it, then I will support it. But personally, I do not at this time. I think we've gone about as far as we can. We've got to let this thing settle out, figure out what happens next, and how we go to, what we got to do to fix the problems in our district and our counties.
I'd have to agree with Senator Cooper. This could really affect all these counties, and we have to, like he says, if the voters want us to support it, then I guess we'll have to at least try to and bring about some kind of understanding if they're not, if we don't think they're doing the right thing. So it's just, we're just going to have to see what happens, I guess, in this initiative.
John? I saw some other hands back there. I saw some, these were first, Marilyn, I'll get you.
You were speaking about the search and rescue losing funding, and also I was wondering what's happening with our first responders. Any funding for first responders?
You have a question on that?
By first responders, do you mean like our ambulance service? Do you mean our
ambulance and volunteer fire department?
So the volunteer fire department is actually a volunteer fire department. Their funding actually comes from the fire district. So the district collects the mill, and then the volunteer fire department requests a budget from the district every year. That is, at least that's how it used to be when I was auditing. I'm assuming it was still the same. So as far as that, the special districts, I think you've seen by Hank's presentation, the special districts are going to be taking a hit as well. So I think their funding will also be going down. What was the other one you said?
Oh, about the search and rescue.
Search and rescue. So search and rescue is required by state statute. It falls basically under the purview of the sheriff's department. So we have continued to try to fund their building, their utilities. But yeah, if they're wanting special equipment from here on out, they're probably going to have to maybe do some fundraising or that type of thing right now. So I don't know how much of that is actually statutorily required. I'm sorry, that's not one of them on my sheet. But I don't think a full operation is required on behalf of the county. You're welcome.
We have time for 2 questions. She was first, then I'll go up here.
My question is about the property tax again and the People's Initiative, it's called, that would come around again for another 25%. You both spoke to disagreeing with that and how it would hurt our county. What do you propose how you can, rather than waiting to see what people say, how can you influence or let them know the danger you see in it?
I want to kind of broaden that question too. I think it can also be thrown back to us. What are we going to do? And you might give us suggestions there.
I think what we're doing right here tonight is probably the biggest step you can make. It's just education of people and let people think about, what are we losing here? Which part of our county services do we not need? Are we ready to give up our hospital district? You guys have a great hospital here. Shall we just let the weeds grow up in the cemetery? I'm sure you have a cemetery district. You have a fire district. We did John and I did some work a couple years ago, last year I guess it was, to save your fire district. It was in trouble with some reporting, and they came to us and we got a bill passed through just, I mean, instantaneously to save the fire district. So which of these services do we not need? Or do we not need a library anymore, or, because that's what we're down to, is it's pick and choose, picking winners and losers, and there's gonna be a lot of losers if we move forward with the People's Initiative, in my opinion. So this education process is probably the biggest thing we can do. And I'm not, like I said, if the voters support it, then I will support it, but I'm not personally in favor of it.
Thank you.
They can't do anything.
I think the folks here in this meeting are a real blessing to the county, and you need to open your minds and your mouths and explain to your neighbors and whoever about what the problems are, and that maybe some of the solutions. Also, do we have a newspaper reporter here tonight?
Yes, she
She's
has
in the
been
back.
here.
She
She has
was?
been back here.
Well, hopefully they can.
About me?
portray-
Good press.
Oh, yep.
We just,
Did you have
I'm
a
just
question?
saying that we hope that you can portray this to the general public as to what maybe the problems are. And this could certainly get people to thinking and asking questions that aren't here at this meeting.
I think it's important to note, at least what I've noted tonight, and I don't know if anybody would back me up, but a lot of the information presented has been presented as the budget has been developed in the last several months. And that's something that I think that the community, and this is just me as I'm watching this, the community should start taking part in the spring as the budget's coming out and being developed, and showing up for those meetings and asking questions from county commissioners about where this money is going before the decisions have been made. Because some of it is out of the hands of our leaders, but some of it isn't, and voice is choice. And so, you know, coming in after the fact is really, is awesome. It's really informative. And yes, I'll write about it, and of course I'll make it positive, of course. I'm really glad to have seen both of you, even though I saw you earlier, but especially you, Senator Cooper. So, you know, but it's important to be involved long before the fall or before the end of the summer, and to ask those questions and to be informed as decisions are being made, and that way you know why, and it isn't on repeat.
Then we need one last question.
Yeah, very well said. And it's important to participate at the state level.
Yes.
All of our meetings, interim meetings, and our board sessions, committee meetings, are all broadcast live. And participate. If you have questions, ask. You'll see me on my phone quite a bit, and I'm not playing games, and I'm not on Facebook. I'm addressing questions from constituents. People call me or text me or email me while we're in a meeting, and they'll have questions or suggestions. I've got suggestions from Kim. We don't see eye to eye on a lot of politics, but I do respect her opinions, and I listen to what has to be said, and I'm sure John does the same.
Are you okay, John?
Because we're just about out of time, so let's get this last question in.
Can I just say a couple more things on that? So, one of the things, I had watched a presentation to a school board. A bunch of parents were down there talking to them. They were upset about the changes in the gun laws. I'm not here for a political thing, but the one thing the school board did say was, it's too late to come talk to us now. You need to be paying attention during legislation, which is what Senator Cooper just said. And I think us up here, sitting up here, that's what we see so often, is it's after the changes have been made that is affecting us. So it's not even coming to us about the budget, it's paying attention as citizens to what is actually happening down in Cheyenne. My last plug is, for a long time, I don't think there were a lot of changes to the county website, but we continue to try and improve that and put more and more information out there. If you have suggestions, let us know, but there really is a lot of this information that we talk about. It is actually posted on the website, so please go out and look and use our website if you can.
You know, and just one quick point on that. It is too late to ask them to do anything about the initiative for the further 25%. That will be on the ballot. That will be up to us. Okay. Last question.
I'll make it very brief. One point I think needs to be made that it seems on social media people don't understand is as you're doing the budget, there are certain items you are legally not allowed to touch. And that means that all those deductions have to be taken out of those items that can be touched. So it's not that the county commissioners hate the 4-H. It's that, you know, there are certain items they can't touch. The second thing I'd like to say is I was traveling around Moreland Basin, Shell, Grable, Thermopolis, different areas where there's a lot of elderly people who are low income. They've paid for their homes. There were several people I talked to who were at risk of losing their homes because of property taxes. And I think that I understand the argument for them, but I think that this initiative came from a place of trying to protect those people. So if you can come up with an alternate process that doesn't cause some elderly person to lose their home because of property taxes on a house they paid for, I think you would get bipartisan support.
Can I reply to that? Sure. That process is in place. It's the refund program. I think you'll find that there's nobody that's actually lost their home. I hear these horror stories, but when I ask for specifics, nobody can name an exact person that's lost their home. If they can't afford that tax, it's got to be paid, but then that tax is refundable to them.
Right, it's got to be
So
paid.
it's got to be paid. In my neighborhood, I know what I did. I paid my neighbor lady's taxes. She got the refund, she paid me back. It's as simple as that. It's taking care of each other and making sure it doesn't happen. It takes a little time to get the refund back, but it works. And that's the exact purpose of it, is to keep people in their homes.
Well, that's exactly the kind of thing you can come up here and talk to them about. And that's, I think both the senator and the representative really do want to hear what you have to say. I do want to thank them for coming tonight. You know, especially Senator Cooper coming so far. I also want to say I wish my classrooms were as good as you guys were at asking questions. Great job. Thank you.
Today, we've got lots of refreshments still in the back. Please mix and mingle. Come on up, ask questions. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Oh, there